The number one problem, especially when you're starting a business, is that no one knows who you are.
Welcome to Behind Their Success. This podcast is for people who are feeling stuck on their entrepreneur journey or in their careers. It's for people who want to scale and grow their businesses, learn about the power of mindset, or they just know there's more out there and they want to start making changes. I'm Peyton Squires, the host of the podcast. I was never cut out to be an employee, and when I was an employee, I was bored out of my mind. So I made a plan. I studied and passed the CPA exam in 8 months while working, all with the end goal in mind of quitting my job and starting my own business. I did that in 2014 and has been an amazing wild ride since. So now let's hear from other entrepreneurs and what mindsets, and probably more important, what actions they have taken that have created and led to their success.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Behind Their Success podcast. I am Peyton Squires, the host, and today we have on Amanda Quitt. Amanda is the founder of Amanda L. Quitt Coaching and Small Business Cultivator. She is the type of business coach who believes that business ownership can be simple and not ran alone. She is a mom to 2 daughters and a wife to her husband, Sean. Amanda is actually a fellow entrepreneur with me here in Columbia, Missouri. She has won several awards, including Como Magazine's 20 Under 40 and Columbia Business Times Emerging Professional of the Year and Entrepreneur of the Year in Columbia. Amanda, welcome on the show.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, absolutely, Amanda. So I know you've kind of been in a transition period the last few years or so with the young kids, right? Won several awards here in Columbia. Kind of give us a history of kind of your entrepreneur journey, kind of where it started and all through that time period.
Yeah, so after college, I graduated with business because I knew I could graduate with that. And I wouldn't say it did anything for me besides giving me a lot of memories I wish I could forget. But I actually got started in real estate right out of college, and I was in real estate for about 10 years. But in 2017, I opened up a co-working space with on-site childcare. And really the thought of it was for women specifically, but like obviously men, dads could come. But to just have that space where you were around other adults and you could either come in and like just simply like work on your Christmas cards, or you come in and pay your bills, or you could come in and run your business while your kiddo was like in the next room and taken care of. And so I had that for about 3 years, and about 2 years in, we're like, this is really expensive. And people in our town don't see $99 for unlimited membership worthwhile, which is bonkers, but here we are. And so like we just knew that like we were going to have to do something. And so I actually started to look at like, do I sell this? Does somebody want to take it over? And in those conversations, we found somebody that owned a space. And so like it was going to be super easy. We had already removed the childcare because that was very expensive too. And like when they were crying, you could hear it. Like there was no getting away from it. And some people that didn't have kids were like, no, this is.
Yeah, it doesn't work for the way it does. Yeah.
And I could spend like 3 days explaining that whole 3 years. But essentially we found somebody, actually was in real estate with him. And we were about to like transition our space to him, and COVID hit. And so then we were like, well, this will be over, which like the rest, like just
2 weeks, right?
Yeah, like let's just like pause, whatever. And I remember we were also in the middle of moving at this time. So like it was fun. You know, COVID didn't just end in 2 weeks. And so we were getting to where we were going to be closing and switching hands at the end of June. And this was whatever, May, I think. And it got to the point where I was like, do you want to do this or not? Like, I don't care, but like, I'm closing the doors either way. And he's like, yeah, I don't think this is the best time. Like, will people even be able to leave their house to go work anywhere? So basically what we were doing was like illegal because you couldn't to like be in a community. We ended up closing our doors, and through my journey of running our space, like I would talk to a lot of the members and more of just like answering the questions. When I did the marketing for our space, like the behind the scenes, like I shared everything. And so I think a lot of people just were comfortable that they could come in and talk about their business and it not, I couldn't really judge them because I made some really dumb mistakes. And so through that, I started we were like, can I pay you for this coaching session? And I'm like, I am not a coach. Like this is you just being a member. And so when we closed some people were like, we would really love to stay like coaching or whatever. And so I just kind of continued that and then built the small business cultivator, which we can get into separately. I'll let you lead that. Small business cultivator came out of that as well. But yeah, I've just really been coaching and showing up where people need me to.
That's awesome. Yeah. So that's kind of interesting. Yes. You did run into some really bad timing there. Right?
Did.
You're on a co-working space and no one's allowed to co-work.
Yeah.
That's the problem.
Yeah.
But the really cool thing and the interesting that to me, the interesting part of that story is that you probably learned a lot about yourself, right? And then also learned about how other people see you, right? Like they learned, oh, Amanda has a lot of great information and what come to her. And then you actually took that and capitalized on it, right? Turned it in kind of to your new business, right?
Yes, for sure. Yeah, like it's definitely, it helps when people are like, can I please pay you? And I'm like, why? One big thing.
Yeah, that's some couple interesting points there you made. And this is something I talk to a lot of businesses, I consult with a lot of businesses and whatnot. But the number one problem, especially when you're starting a business, is that no one knows who you are.
Yeah.
And you were probably hustling around and whatnot, and it takes years to build that, right? It takes years to be top of mind for people to know. That's the biggest problem most entrepreneurs have is they are not branded as the accountant or the co-working space person. That's the biggest thing you got to break through in the beginning.
Yeah. I remember there was a woman and she came in to interview with me, and this woman came in and she was like in the tech world and worked for like a Fortune 500 company. She sat down in front of me and she's like, I've never heard of you. And it was like that I'm not really intimidated very often, but I was like, she intimidated me, but in such a good way, because it was good because I'm like, okay, like I think I'm doing all of these things. Like one, you have to continue to do it, but also like she just checked. I don't think I was egotistical to be like everybody knows me, but it was good to be like, okay, like thank you. Thank you, Arminta. I appreciate you. And I love like we're like, I don't want to say close.
Well, was it Arminta?
Yes.
Yeah, I remember.
And not like I'm on a board with her in a different one. And she's wonderful, but like she is intimidating. I was like, you. Yes. I was like, you intimidated me like from day one.
It provided you a new perspective, right?
For
It's all, constant. You'd be learning, constantly getting new perspectives because, we've only experienced whatever tiny piece of life, there is to live. What fraction of the world have we experienced ourselves it's basically zero.
Right.
And you see this across all areas of life. It's amazing to me how many people believe that their experiences are everything or like the truth of how the world works.
Yeah.
It's the people that grow and learn and take that information in and maybe recalibrate how they see the world or let people that are more successful.
Yeah. Well, and it's also it was almost a good like reboot too, because it's at some point you're like, I am saying the same thing and doing the same thing, seeing the same people. Like, okay, but then you find out like there are more people out there that don't know about me. It was almost a challenge to be like, what can we tweak? What class can we host? Like, what different things can we do to bring people in? And that was something that like pretty early on, I don't know if you know Reagan, who used to work with me, but she was a strategic communication with the graphic design like major, which is the best freaking first hire you can make. Because like our marketing was who design did it first, and then Reagan came in and she used to work for them. And so like our marketing was so good, so branded. But it was like, okay, when people walk in the door, they're joining. But to me, that means like not enough people are walking in the door. So like, how can we get people in? And that's when we started hosting our classes, which was so cool. I love networking and bringing people together, but also me getting to see the members and their expertise more than them.
Yeah, that's kind of interesting. It's like running a business and you're trying to get as many people on the funnel. And then as they move through your funnel, right, they may see a piece of marketing, they come into the office, they take a class, and once you get really good at that funnel and get really stats and data minded, like you can see where people are falling off. Like, okay, maybe all these people come in the door, but only 50% of them sign up. You can get super granular in business of tweaking. And these are the businesses that are super successful, the ones that have really dialed in each step in this process, each step in the client journey. Those are the people that really rock and roll.
Yeah. And I think that ask for feedback. Like that was always something where I'm like, there's a book called All in Startup. I don't know if you've read it. Diana Gabor was actually from or around this area, but it's all about like getting market research to build your business, and it has like a story of a business doing this. And I read that book, and it was between that and the E-Myth. I'm like, hands down, the two books you would have to read if you're starting a business. But I was like, you just don't be a jerk, but like tell me like the good, the bad, the ugly, so that we know where to improve. Some of it you can like throw in the trash can.
Yeah.
But I think if you're not listening to your customers, like if you're not asking them and they're paying you money or not paying you money, like not listening to them seems so silly. One, I think it's kind of like your ego's in the way.
Yeah. You don't want to hear it, right?
Yeah, to be like, well, I'm doing everything great, but also like, who are they to tell me how to run my business? To be like, I mean, they are paying you.
You need to be open to feedback and looking for consistent feedback. And also, you made a good point there is like understand the source it's coming from. Like you're asking clients and there's going to be a lot of great information there. There's going to be a lot of feedback they give you too that like, because all the details of the business, you'd be like, well, yeah, that just flat out won't work.
Right.
But the mindset of open mind and trying to craft it and make it constantly better and better for the clients, that's the perfect
Yeah.
situation.
Well, and I think it also creates your marketing too. Like if they're talking to you about their pain points and they're like, well, this is why I'm not coming, or this is why I'm not coming, then like that can then be your marketing for other people who are struggling with that and they want to use, they're like, that's their excuse to use.
Oh,
So
yeah. And to go back to the E-Myth, yeah, fantastic. Michael Gerber. The book is so really good. I guess kind of the concept is really, this is a real business, right?
Yeah.
We're professionals here. Let's build a real business. Let's not, half-ass everything or it really encourages people to build systems and processes. That as small businesses, even as a guy that like started my own small business, which actually was 10 years ago today,
Girl, happy
my job,
anniversary.
I had no idea what I was doing,
No.
right? I had a laptop sitting in my living room and like,
Yeah.
I mean, I could talk to people about taxes, but I had no idea how to run a business.
Yeah. I love it when he says systems run businesses and people run systems. And then it's just comparing it to like the McDonald's franchise model, not the French fries and the hamburgers, but like the model of like the hamburger is slipped after 3 minutes and then the French fries come up after 8 minutes. And therefore, you don't have to hire these extraordinary people. You just have to have extraordinary systems for the like to put people in place.
Yeah, and that's where, we were talking about earlier about like dialing in all the marketing.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's McDonald's has just done that over 60 years and they got their back end processes just knocked out cold.
Yes.
Are you looking for a new tax experience? Looking for an advisor that actually brings you high-level ideas and proactively plans so you aren't overpaying your taxes? Or how about one that even just responds and communicates in a timely fashion? If any of that resonates with you, you probably just have a tax preparer and not a tax planner. And it is through the tax planning process where all the value is found. I'm Peyton Squires. I'm a CPA and owner of WR Tax Planners. We work alongside entrepreneurs and high-income earners, helping them pay the least amount of income taxes, both legally and ethically. We have saved our clients hundreds of thousands of dollars through specific strategies, and we guarantee we can find multiple tax saving strategies that your current tax preparer hasn't told you about. If that interests you, head on over to the contact page at PeytonSquires.com. There you can fill out a contact form and get a call booked to see what it would look like to have WR Tax Planners on your team.
So, been on a journey, right? Some ups and downs, right? Well, a lot of words, had a business disappear because of custody.
Yeah. Well, I was switching it beforehand. So I do like that was an interesting thing though, because like I had decided before that I wanted to close. Like we were done. It was just so stressful. It was not making the money. And we were personally putting into it. And Sean's like, okay, at some point, like we wanted to buy land and like build a house. So like this money, he's like, I believe in you 150%. But like the numbers. And so it got to be the point where like it was just so stressful. And so that's when I was like, okay, like we're just going to close it unless somebody can take it. The hard part was whenever it basically like closed without me being in control of how it closed.
That had to be really tough.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah. And then our landlord was so kind. He was like, like, I still have to pay my bills, so you got to pay your bills. I'm like, cool. Luckily, somebody came in and took over our building, or else I would have been paying a lot of money over the next 3 years.
A lot of commercial rent.
So, but I always think like I looked at my coaching and I feel like the things that I go through, I'm just a little bit ahead of the game of my clients. And so it's like I'll go through almost declaring bankruptcy like, if we still have to pay our lease, like, we don't have a lease if you don't have a business. And so, like, we even had conversations about that until bless Mary Ropp, one of her clients. She was like, call so and so and like about your space. And so luckily they took it over, which was nice. But yeah, I just think that all of those lessons have helped me to where I am today because I can really empathize with other business owners. So
Yeah, you've been in the struggles, right? And then,
For
you
sure.
know, that whole, you know, you can easily look back on that situation, and say that whole situation perfectly set me up to serve people now that are in, you know, in similar type situations, or helping people grow their business, right? You learned a ton of lessons,
Yeah.
right? And you can serve people through the coaching.
Yeah. And then it started with Small Business Cultivator because it's all the members from there too. So
Yeah.
we come in for it used to be those in the messy middle that were like ready to kind of ramp up things. We learned that that is not a client that probably has the investment that it costs to work with us. And the people that were coming to us were actually experts in their field. They were just working for a corporation, but they wanted to branch off on their own. They knew their expertise. They were very confident in what they could do. They knew the services that they would be able to offer. They just didn't know the business side, nor did they really have the time to like piecemeal what it looked like. And so, and this actually came from a show called Small Business Revolution, and I would cry on every episode. And so essentially what we do is we come around the business owner and we run them through a framework that we created. So they start with one expert, and that's their brand strategy. Well, they actually start with an assessment. So we know if we can help them in what they're doing. They start with what's called a brand strategy. And that's really finding out like all of the brand of who they are, their vision, their mission, their values of themselves, their values of the company, the values of their customer. It really just like gives them a whole like document of who they are and who they serve and how they show up. It's so beautiful, but Alicia does such a great job. So every step we've figured out how it builds on each other. So that document goes to then Jillian, and Jillian creates branding elements and logo if needed. And then both of those also then go to Kristen, who works on your customer experience. So like from somebody inquiring on how they found you to filling out a lead capture form on your website to your sales call to like you producing and you delivering it all the way to like, you know, you sending them a thank you card. She works with that whole customer delivery. And then that goes to Erica, who does a custom website. And then Tia creates, who you know very well. She does the social media. So she comes in and does like a whole social media in a day and creates your strategy, where you show up, how you show up, your pillars of content, taking your brand core and your elements and creating a lot of your social media. And then like a 6 months worth of content. And then Laura, she's a bookkeeper. And so she comes in to help like, what do you think your expenses are going to be? What services, like what are they going to cost? And then setting up QuickBooks and all of that fun stuff. And so through all of that, I'm the project manager, and then I'm also coaching them through the whole thing.
Yeah, I think if I had to sum that up, it would be, you know, you're working with people that are really wanting to get their business off the ground in a serious fashion.
For sure.
And quickly. And then, you know, in a short amount of time, I guess in a few months, they're going to have a real professional presence and be really ready to just kind of jump up and hit the ground running.
Yeah. Without having to like piecemeal it all together on the back end, which is the beautiful part that is kind of like our secret. And then you have like 7 people with their networks as hype people, and just like coming from all of their different experiences and perspectives. And so to have just like that amount of people to like on your side is pretty cool because it's pretty lonely.
Yeah, very much so. It can be very lonely, and especially grow and you know, I talk to a lot of different business owners, and I'm part of a mastermind group myself, really for that fact. But you know, as you start to grow and you just have less and less people that can relate to you.
Yeah.
Right. So it is a lonely journey. It doesn't have to be. That's the thing. And it's amazing how powerful it is to get like in a group or a mastermind group, like But it's important to have those group support to be able to just talk about business stuff that it's kind of hard. You can't talk to your father-in-law or whatever. So, Amanda, you've done a lot of different things, right?
Yes.
What would you credit as your best skill? Like, what skill leads to your success?
I feel like empathy, but also being very direct and asking questions that like a lot of people don't want to touch with a 10-foot pole. Just because I think that's really where like the magic is. And because not very many people want to ask that, like I don't think business owners are living up to their full potential a lot of times. And so I feel like that's probably what it is. And that's probably comes from me getting asked those hard questions in like therapy and my coaches.
I think it's Tony Robbins says like the quality of your life is directly tied to the quality of the questions you ask. And I have an executive coach friend of mine that talks about all the time. His kind of shtick or his line is like, one great question can forever change your life. He's story behind that, but and then in the perfect situation as a coach or consultant or therapist or whatever, you're just allowing them to find the answer on their own.
For sure. And almost like just giving them the permission to see that it's okay to do it.
Yeah.
I think forever, like we come up through kids and then we go to school and it's like you're told what you're supposed to do, where to go, what to wear, like all of that stuff forever. And then all of a sudden you start a business, you're like, do whatever you want. I'm like, what? Like I had a client, he was like, I do not want to meet in the mornings. It's killing my career term. I'm like, don't meet in the mornings. And he's like, can I do that?
Yes.
Yeah. And he's like, well, people want to meet in the mornings. I'm like, okay, well, like you can offer that if it's like, somebody you really want to meet with, but like you can also not. And he's like, okay. And interesting, like what we think like we can or can't do. And it's just wild.
Yeah, it is weird. It is, and it's all habits and conditioning and stuff that happened to you as a kid and whatnot. And that's why it's so important to become as self-aware as possible.
For sure.
But yeah, it's like, oh, you don't want to work Fridays? Okay, block the calendar.
Don't do it.
Yeah, just don't.
But it's like also don't feel guilty the whole day that you're off. It'll take a minute, but it's okay.
Yeah, and I'm probably the worst at that. Oh, if I left early from work or whatnot, I'm like, oh, I should feel bad or I should be doing something or whatnot. And that's part of just my personality. It's something that always wants to get stuff done. Yeah. I started my business like 10 years ago today, but I had the same kind of feelings, right? Or like I was like just home all the time on emails here and there and whatnot, right? But I didn't have that much to do. And I didn't want people to know about it. But now, like, I want some more of that back.
Right. Yeah. It's like a vicious cycle. It's like you look up and you're like, oh, wait a minute. Like, what am I doing? Yeah.
Built a new prison.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I think they say like if you don't have control of it, like you just built yourself your own job or something.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And that's, mine's been a bit of a transition. Like I've had my business. It wasn't until probably 3 or 4 years ago where I'd say I try to transform from self-employed to like a business. Yeah. And, I'm the kind of guy that just kind of won't stop. So I just keep creating more problems for myself. But my wife and I have had a lot of conversations about that, and we're working on this about simplifying and trying to make things.
Yes.
Like, let's make sure we keep the first things first.
Yeah. I think Ed Mylett, he talks about like what's your thermostat set to, and it's like most people it's set to chaos. Yeah. And so it's like if we're
in the entrepreneur
for sure. The iterations of entrepreneurship, whether it's like hustle, where it's like you have to be grinding, to then it's like, well, then how do we actually only work 4 hours a day? But then that's really not sustainable as you're starting, but like, how do you grow? And so I think it's also just going into the feels of like, what feels the best? Like how do I actually want to run my life? Like I want to take my girls to school and then I want to pick them up. Before I did a lot of inner work, I would have thought that the 15-ish hours a week that I actually had to work and then like get some home stuff done so that when I picked him up, like no computer, like hardly any cell phone, I would have freaked out to been like, that is not enough. And I'm now like, no, I want to work. But it's also like, I have to look at like, what are my goals? Like with 15 hours. What is my income goal? Like, can it be like making 6 figures? Some people could probably say yes. I haven't figured that one out yet. But it's
Yeah.
like, how do I want, like, what do I want at the end of the day? Like, I want to feel fulfilled, which means like I don't want to be doing admin all day or like behind the scenes building stuff. Like, I want to be out there meeting people. And so, because then, and this is where like the woo side of me comes in, but the energy that you put out there, like, does attract
Weird.
people that's outside of just your social media posts, right? Like, and I don't know, it's interesting. And I feel like I have hustled my ass off since like 2017 building the hatchery. Like, luckily, I love our town and it's larger but small. That like there's plenty of people that still remember me. And so if I'm not at every networking event like I used to be, like it's not like I've been forgotten, which was a huge fear after I had Nancy. I was like, nobody is gonna remember me. And so now I'll work from the grind and I'll see 3 people. I'm like, okay, I think we're good. Like,
Yeah, and it's similar. Like I've grinded and grinded through years and years. I would say I've grinded nonstop since I'd say COVID,
yeah.
and I think it all comes, like you said earlier, it all comes down to intentionality, right? Like, okay, I have this business. Like, what do you want your week to look like? Just
Mhm.
start there. Like, what do you want Monday through Friday to look like?
Yep.
And then build it, right? And build your business around that.
Yeah.
And if you could do that, you can find ways to fit a whole lot of stuff in. You start with the building blocks and just design what do you want the week to look
Yeah. I love doing that work with clients because usually one of two things happened. One is people, because like I love brain dumps. That's like one of the things I love to do. And it's like when there's like, I don't have any time. And I'm like, okay, let's list out literally every single thing that you're doing and how long it takes you.
Let's check those social media
Do
stats.
that too, yes. Yeah, and then we put it back together, like, in a weekly schedule on the screen, and it's like, one person was like, "I look so desperate for, like, trying to make this work," and she was doing, like, so many more services than she needed to. One person was like, "I have a lot more time than I thought I did," or they're like, "I have too much on there, I need to hire," but they have to see it in that way to be like, you literally have every single white space, like, full, but you're burnt out. You don't see your kids. So, like, what can you hire? And that's a cool thing for them to start seeing, like, I don't actually need to do this. So and so can do this. So and so that I already pay can actually do this, this, and this. And it's such a neat concept to see for so that they can then like take back the time that they are spending on
Yep.
cover.
Yeah. And you automate, delegate, eliminate,
Mhm.
right? Where
Yeah.
and you see somebody has a packed schedule. You can see my calendar. It's pretty much that.
Yeah.
But like, there's probably a whole bunch of junk on there you can really eliminate that has no honest effect of the outcome of the
For
business,
sure.
how much money you make or whatever. So once again, it's like, people say they don't have time. Everybody's got the same amount of time,
Mhm.
and it's just prioritizing and using leverage to get what you it's just a lack of focus sometimes.
Or I think sometimes it's boundaries too, which I think then I love to be like, okay, where's that coming from? And I think a lot of it, especially when people get started, is like it's a lack of self-worth.
I assume you might fall in that trap as a social, like, a more outgoing type person.
Yes. And I used to have major FOMO of not willing to a networking event. And I think when I had the hatchery, it was like, but I could get one more member and one more member. And like, that's going to save us. We needed a lot more than one more member. I needed everybody to know what we did. And I also felt like I had to be there because, like, what am I doing if I'm not? Like, what am I doing being at home? I should be there. But I think too, it's when people open up their Calendly or whatever schedule they use, and it's like all day, every day. And I'm like, no. When do you do admin? When are you doing client work? And they're like, well, I just want to be available. I'm like, you still can. But like that doesn't mean that you have to like be wide open and available for everybody. But I think a lot of it's like, who am I to not work on Fridays? Or who am I to not offer meetings on Mondays? Like, what are they going to think? And usually it's they're not thinking anything, but like, when's the day work for them?
Yeah.
Which is usually like the whole, when I've talked to like Mizzou classes, I'm like, nobody's actually paying as much attention to you as you think they are.
Yeah, you're not as important.
They're
Just
yeah.
and you really want to zoom out further, you talk about legacy. Oh, people are going to forget about me or whatever. Everybody's going to forget about you.
For sure.
And everybody live that knows you is going to be dead someday.
Yeah.
Well, like for me, there's like freedom in that to know that like, while everything I do matters, right? Because everything I do affects everything else, but like in the big picture at the exact same time, doesn't really matter.
Yeah. And it's like in 5 years, like what is this actual situation going to do for you? It's hopefully like the blip on your timeline of things.
We make much bigger deals out of whatever's right in front of us. In 2 years, we won't even remember.
For sure. If that. Yeah.
So Amanda, looking back
Yeah.
at the girl that's opening the hatchery,
Oh, yeah.
what piece of advice would you give yourself?
Oh,
If you could talk to her right now.
oh man. I think trust yourself more. Like give yourself more credit than you thought and like keep going with the flow. I remember whenever I was creating, I was like every day I'd be like, okay, what I knew what I needed to work on, but I was like, what's the main thing I need to work on today? It was almost like a thought, but also like a prayer, I think, because it's like, what do we need to do today? And like the thing that I was working on would like somehow get figured out. And so I think it was just like being okay with who we were and what we were doing and just staying true to the vision that I had. And then probably being like, you can close childcare sooner. Like the 5 people that use it are gonna figure it out. And I
Mm.
probably would have saved a lot of money.
Yeah, and that's you wanted it to work, and for a myriad of reasons,
You're
couldn't in that situation. Not that it couldn't in the future or whatever, but it's tough. Like you feel like you're letting people down. Or
For sure.
imagine that would have bothered me.
Yeah. I remember Colin Bunch, he had asked me because he was part of that mentorship group. He said, okay, because there was a liquor store right next to us. He's like, okay, so somebody next door gets drunk tonight and comes in and like accidentally lights this place on fire. You come in tomorrow morning. What is your feeling? And I was like, relief. And he was like, okay. So I think we have our answer on what our next steps is. And I was like, yes, we sure do. And I've literally used that question for so many business owners.
Well, and that's good because you've taken all your experiences, and you're all flipped and turned to try to help everybody that comes behind you. And like what you were talking about, Ed Milet, he famously says that you're the most qualified to help the person you used to be.
Yes.
Which is so true, right? You talk about like the bad alcoholic. Well, they're the most qualified to go reach, the person that is still struggling.
For sure. Yeah.
Because that person struggling with alcohol is going to be way more open because they understand this person's been through.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
Amanda, this has been a great conversation. What is the best way people can connect with you on your coaching and small business Cultivator?
Yeah. So Instagram is where I usually am. I kind of like take a hiatus and then I come back. I went like on a vacation and didn't touch it for a week. And I was almost came back and I was like, we're really
Are re-engaged?
And then some days I'm like, I have so much to say, I don't know what to say. But Instagram, Amanda L. Quick Coaching. And then also Small Business Cultivator, which I actually haven't posted on that in a while. And then AmandaLeeQuick.com and then smallbusinesscultivator.com. You can get to it either way.
Very cool. Amanda, anything else you want to share with the listeners before we go?
I don't think so. Thank you so much for doing this. I know that there's work that goes in behind it. So I appreciate you letting me come in and talk and then you sharing your story and their stories with other people. So
yeah. Well, I thank you. Thank you very much for that. Yeah, I really enjoyed doing this stuff and it's great for learning for the community.
For sure.
All right. Thanks, guys, listeners. We'll catch you next time. Thank you so much for listening to the podcast. If you found it valuable, please rate, review, and share it. That is the best way to help us build this and reach more people. As we're trying to accomplish our goal of help creating more healthy, wealthy, and wise entrepreneurs. You can follow us on social media by searching for me, Peyton Squires, or going to PeytonSquires.com. On the website and social media, we're always sharing tips of personal growth, and there we can actually interact. I'm looking forward to it. Thanks, guys.